you were watching this film, it's because you need a little extra help on the quadratic formula and get some practice too. So make sure you have the white worksheet. We'll go through a few problems and take a few notes, and then you can do the rest on your own. So why don't you turn the white worksheet over, and I'll give you a few notes. First, we'll look at the quadratic formula and standard form and all that kind of stuff, and then we'll do a couple problems on the front. So here is the quadratic formula. There it is. And those A's, B's, and C's are coefficients. Coefficients of quadratic equation in standard form. Okay, we will probably see most of them as an equals 0, but if it's not, it needs to go back into standard form first. And then if you notice, A is the number that's in front of the quadratic term, or the x squared. B is the number that's in front of the linear term, which is the x by itself. And C is the constant with no x's at all. All right, and we are actually going to take a look at the quadratic. We're going to calculate these pieces first, and then we're going to put them into the formula last. So let's go back to a few problems here. And we're going to do number 3. I think we're going to do number 7. So notice number 3 says equals 0, so it must be in standard form. So we can go ahead and write A equals 6, B is equal to 8, and C is equal to negative 30. There's our A's, B's, and C's. And we'll calculate then the opposite of B, which is negative 8. We'll calculate 2A, which is 12. And we'll calculate B squared minus 4AC, which is 8 squared minus 4 times 6 times negative 30. This is 64, and since there's two negatives here, minus 4 and a negative 30, they'll turn into a positive. And then 4 times 6 is 24. 24 times 30 is 720. Adding those together, you get 784. Okay, now that we have those three things put together, we're going to plug it into the quadratic formula. So we have x equals, and then the opposite of b was negative 8 plus or minus the square root. And we'll put that discriminant that's called the b squared minus 4ac into the square root. And then on the bottom is 2a, which is just 12. And then the square root of 784 is 28. And we will go ahead and split that up into its two parts and come up with two answers. So negative 8 plus 28 over 12. That's 20 over 12, or 5/3. And then negative 8 minus 28 over 12 is negative 36 over 12, which is negative 3. So those are our two answers for that problem. And we can combine those because they're both integer numbers. Okay, let's also take a look at one where where the square root doesn't come out to be an integer. So in this case, 784 is a perfect square, 28. But let's take a look at one that doesn't work out quite that way. So we're going to do number 8, which is over here. And if you notice, it's not in standard form. So we're going to have to put it in standard form. And that would be moving this negative 1 over to the other side of the equal sign, or adding 1 to both sides. You get 4x squared minus 12x plus 1 equals 0. And from this then, we can say a equals 4, b equals negative 12, and c equals positive 1. All right, from those letters, we're going to calculate the opposite of b. That's positive 12. We're going to do 2 times a. That's 8. We're also going to do b squared minus 4ac, which is negative 12 squared minus 4 times 4 times 1. 144 minus, because there's only one negative, 4 times 4 times 1 is 16. And I get 128 for that calculation. Now we'll plug them in to the formula. Opposite of b comes first, that's 12. Underneath the square root sign goes the b squared minus 4ac, that's 128. And on the bottom is the 2a, that's 8. Now we just need to simplify the square root. 128 can be split into 64 and 2, which is 8 root 2. So putting that in the equation then, 12 plus or minus 8 root 2 all over 8. Okay, so here is where you would stop. There's one better answer that you could write when all of those numbers are simplified, but you can't add 12 with 8 root 2. That's not 20 root 2. Because one of them has a square root sign, that makes that number completely different. That number is actually not 8. It's 8 times about 1.4. So what we do notice, though, is that this number and this number and this number are all divisible by 4. So we can write our final answer by taking the 4 out of all three parts. Okay? And you can only do this if you can take it out of all three parts. So the GCF is 4 of those numbers, and we're going to divide and we're going to factor out a 4. So 12 divided by 4 is 3, 8 divided by 4 is 2. Notice it's still square root of 2, that stays the same, and 8 divided by 4 is also 2. So that is our final answer. There you have it. There are 10 more problems left. The answers are on the back of the sheet. Practice so that you do well in the test.